I'm going to start. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Desert Magnolia. Here's your hostess, Deidre L. Stevenson, and we are going to be discussing the book, The Handmaid's Tale, with a couple of fellas that I'm meeting with at the Rosakema Book Club meeting. We have a very small turnout today, which is okay, because we can have a much more intimate discussion about The Handmaid's Tale. So, now we can begin. Just don't think that the mic is there. Let's just talk.
Okay.
So
the one thing that has struck me about this novel is the kind of dystopia that the writer is trying to present to us. And one aspect of this dystopia is when people were not in the papers. I think that struck me, and let me read out loud a quotation. We were the people who were not in the papers.
Oh.
We lived in the blank white spaces at the edges of print. It gave us more freedom. We lived in the gaps between the stories. I'd like to kind of start by.
that's very
making
odd.
that
I
note
never
and then
actually
yes.
I don't remember that quote.
Yeah.
That's in the book?
It is in the book.
Wow.
Margaret Atwood, The Handmaid's.
Okay. But who said that in the book? Which character?
Okay, I think it's one of the.
Offred?
Probably one of the so-called maids.
The Handmaids. Right.
Right.
Well, I guess we'd have to assume Offred said that, because, and I suppose she means by that, because they don't really matter in that society.
Right. Yes.
They're not really considered actual people.
Yes.
They actually call them non-women.
Yes.
Because they don't have
different ones, non-women.
Non-women, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then
the wives.
The wives sometimes. Mm-hmm. But I think what struck me from the perspective of somebody who deals with printed matter all the time is that your importance is somehow associated with the printed.
Yes.
The printed.
Right.
What's printed, what's written down.
Right.
If you're oral, you fall in between the gaps of the printed official scripted history.
Right.
What I think is really what interested me, and I mentioned this just before we started, like when I originally read this book, which was years ago, and so I was coming back to it. But when I originally read this book, I didn't see a number of things, and I think it is really somewhat along those lines, is that there's an awful lot going on here that is this kind of in between, because it's very easy to read The Handmaid's Tale for what it is, in part, which is a dystopian story about what happens with the oppression of women, of thinking about how women are a particular kind of sort of element, symbolically get treated a very particular way. And it's very easy to take this almost on this kind of surface level of genuinely how women need equal pay for equal work, and sort of genuine feminist novel, and it is that. But there's this kind of way that embraces a universal humanity of the problem of these in-between spaces. And that just struck me, especially this second time around, that there are these gestures in it about, let's just say, maybe a really general way to put it is the way that our own relationship to society and people can be very problematic. Maybe someone put it to me as a sort of like the political, let's just say, that's sort of an easy way to put it. So I really, the second time around, I was sort of profoundly struck by it.
Yes, it has all of these wonderful insights,
Right.
And the first right that they removed from women was the right to give birth. Also kind of struck me, the idea of being, productive. The idea of giving birth.
Yeah.
The guy, of course.
And it's not just about birth, but it's about productivity, right? Like striking away that fundamental issue of being productive, right? And I don't mean to make this sort of Christian per se or,
Yes,
or
okay.
biblical.
That's
but
okay.
Okay,
Be,
go ahead and
be fruitful and
And
multiply.
multiply.
Like
Right.
that's where it's cutting things. Is your
Right.
your ability to be fruitful in whatever sense is regulated in this book. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
The other thing that struck me, and but please, I'd like to hear from others, is the idea that, if you remember before these rituals, which were like really devastating of Fred, and others, they would always read the Bible.
Yes.
Is the biblical word as
Well, only the
affirming.
men would be able to read
Yes,
the Bible.
yes.
The women weren't allowed
Right.
to read.
But also, I think
Yeah.
what is very disturbing is to hear the voice of the Lord confirming and affirming oppression. I think that it just strikes you
Yeah.
as what is Margaret Atwood doing in here?
Right.
Well, she's demonstrating how a lot of religious groups
Right.
and I don't
Yes.
mean just Christianity. I mean
Right.
many
No,
others
no,
too
no.
will pick and choose pieces of their religious text
Right.
to suit themselves.
Right.
I mean, leaving the parts that they don't consider convenient.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Well, you can see how that's an interesting element of this. It has to do with, like, let's read from this, but let's read pieces, let's say. It's
Right.
that's different than, like, because it's not a question of actually that. It's not at all an issue of Christianity or Islam or whatever
Right.
is oppressive. It's politically that can be turned into whatever one wants as a kind of narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a
It's a-
huge argument for the separation of church and state,
yes,
actually.
yes.
I'm a big fan of that. Yes.
And
I am
also-
too.
For those
actually.
reasons. For those
Yes,
reasons.
yes.
For
Also,
those
some of the
reasons.
insights about what freedom is also strikes me. Here's a quotation again: "A rat in a maze is free to go anywhere
Right.
as long as it stays inside the maze."
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Yes,
Isn't that?
that's
aren't we
profound,
always
actually.
fooled to think that we're really free when it is, in fact, we might actually be resembling this rat that has only these contours,
These boundaries
these
that,
boundaries
yeah,
to just run around and
that's
so
very
The
true.
book
She's-
is so filled with those little sort
Yes.
of asides, right?
Yeah.
That's actually, I think, where it becomes a sort of interesting dystopian book, because it's not, like, what it's not saying is, look out, this could happen, although that's
Yes.
sort of an element.
Yes.
Right.
But, like, it's really sort of getting at this kind of question of, to some degree, this is already the structure that we have in place.
Yeah.
Not as severe,
Yeah.
but in essence, in the same way you're sort of mentioning about the rat in this case,
Yes.
like, we already have these kind of ideas about women that basically operate in
Right.
how we do things, and they're implicit but not explicit, and yet
Yes.
there they are. That's a kind of piece. And I think that's the sort of interesting.
yes,
What I found interesting too is the fact that the women were actually the initiators of
Yeah.
a lot of the Gilead,
Yes.
philosophy,
Yes.
which is really something that I've always been, very much against, and I've said that a million times, that a woman can oppress another woman much, much easier and better than a man
Right.
ever could.
More effectively, isn't it? It's really
Yes,
interesting.
absolutely.
It's sort of internal. And,
Right. There's this old school, and they really don't want things to change, and they will do anything to kind of bring it back to the way
Yes,
it
yes.
was in their day, which means that they will limit opportunities
Yes.
for women that seem to be threatening to break those boundaries, to break out of the maze, so to speak.
and where you can see it in this book is, the sort of wife who, like, because she's got a great deal of power in
Yeah.
the position she's in, and
Right.
the wife
so-
of the commander.
Yeah, the wife
Serena,
of the commander.
Serena Joy.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Serena Joy. So and there's and mentioning that Serena Joy, like, she's got this long history too of
Yes, herself.
basically being in this system where she's been very much a figure of power and authority.
Yeah,
and so
even
forth.
an author,
Yeah.
and now suddenly she put herself into this self-imposed prison.
Right.
Yes.
So it's
know?
perfectly
Yes.
helpful for her in some sense, even though she's limited in what she does. She's really in a very good position. And therefore
Right.
that justifies, at least for her, continuing the system no matter what. Yeah, and that, I mean, that's, you can see the kind of explanation for why it is she enables this and supports it,
Right.
even
Right.
though it's very oppressive to women in general.
Right.
But for her personally, it becomes this very-
she gets benefit
Yeah,
from it,
yeah.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Because
Amazing.
she's
Those that
in
benefit from oppression. Yes.
from oppression,
Right,
right. The women who are in the upper positions will benefit from oppressing women, other women.
Let us remember that the novel was originally published in 1984, 85, I think,
Okay.
Right.
early on, and the vision of this Gilad, kingdom or republic, I think.
In a republic,
Uh,
right?
I think it was amazing that she imagined the possibility of this. But I don't want to turn this into some kind of political commentary on modern day America. But honest to God, don't you really think
It's
That's
kind of
too
hard
easy.
not to,
Yeah.
though. Honestly,
I just can't believe some of the stuff is happening now.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like commonplace now to talk about the president of the United States paying hush money to silence some two ladies,
Right.
Right.
And
right.
like everybody's talking about this as like commonplace.
Right.
Right.
Things that we would never have imagined in, I don't know,
Right.
before.
Previous era.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So, I mean,
There was
I
a
don't know,
time
this
that
is-
a president would have been held to the strictest moral standards.
Yes, right.
You know, more than anyone else in American society. But now it seems that everything is being forgiven. He's forgiven for everything he
Yeah.
says, everything he does.
I mean,
Right.
look at, and I think we talked about this, and maybe I shouldn't really reveal that, but we talked a little bit about this and how disturbed we are, some of us are, that the President of the United States, in all of these, sinful behavior and, iniquities and all this, to use Christian terms, is still supported by the Christian majority.
Which is
Right,
really
right.
shocking.
Very
It is.
I know.
It is.
Yes.
So maybe, and I hope to God I am wrong, we are very close to this dystopia of this Gilad place where actually in the name of piety,
Right.
oppression is going to be possible. In
Right.
the name of the Lord,
Right.
Right.
women
Right.
would lose the right to their own bodies and,
Right.
and ability to give birth and
Yeah.
so on.
Exactly.
Like if you have a majority of Christians now supporting a man who in every way, in fact they are supporting him because he's not saintly, they said.
Right.
Because he is a sinner.
Wow.
Because
Right.
he is like
Clearly.
fallen,
Right.
Okay, and like confusing the issue of that we are all sinners and fallen
Yeah.
with, but we are not always, consorting with these kind of types and classes of ladies,
Exactly.
and so this is really strange.
It is
to think
very
about it.
strange. I find it incredibly
Yeah.
ironic.
Well, it's, I mean,
Okay.
I guess you could say it's that kind of logical consistency is what the novel bears out
Okay.
in terms of, you would think, how is it that people could put up with this kind
Yes.
of law, this kind of civilization, and yet they do. But that's exactly, like, that's the modern metaphor. is
Yes.
How
Yeah.
could we put up with a president who does such a thing, and yet we do.
We do, and
how
some
is
of us
it? How
Well,
is it?
Support.
I
Yeah.
think that one
Yeah.
point the book makes it though, and this may be related to what we're talking about, is that society seems to have lost its moral fiber completely.
Yeah.
That everybody's materialistic.
Yes.
They're concerned with pleasure. They're
Right.
concerned with the instant gratification and everything
Right.
that's plastic. Basically, plastic life.
Yes.
And in Gilead, they blamed all of that and the women being promiscuous, for the low birth rate, and
Right.
it was all this
Right.
this
That's the
ungodly
comparison right there.
behavior, that caused God to punish them,
Yes.
by taking away, the ability to have kids.
I guess
Right.
I'd say, like, in some ways, then the logic of the book is exactly the logic that we follow. I mean, it's the other side of it, but there's no real difference structurally. It's like, this is why we can put up with it. The same reason we put up with what we have, right?
Right.
That we're willing to overlook certain kinds of things because
You feel like you're doing it for the greater good.
Really, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It is a wonderful insight, and again, as a quotation, the moment of betrayal is the worst. The moment when you know beyond any doubt that you've been betrayed, that some other human being has wished you that much evil.
Wow.
And I thought that some of these insights, every now and then, should come up with these statements.
Yeah.
And I must say, it gives that kind of universal appeal.
Yes.
To be very particular, because that would be, written in between details.
Yes.
Of the narrative itself. Go ahead.
I guess I was going to say, like, what I think that's actually something that strikes me about this book is a universal appeal, let's say, because it's not the case that we, I mean, obviously we're not living in that kind of world, and yet there's something that's very striking here about how we nonetheless feel that same kind of oppression. Let's say. I mean, not the same, but still this kind of issue of how, like, I can see how they are forced to do a kind of set of things that we too are, and it's not even just, let's say, a particularly American or Canadian thing, give me author, but like it's the way that we all sort of, all is probably wrong, but that we find ourselves in these situations where, particularly, let's say, with the book in terms of women's oppression, I think we all can see how that's actually clearly in place in a great number of the countries in the world. Like the way that we all have these kind of expectations for men and women. We enforce them. They have consequences that are very clear in terms of birth, in terms of career, in terms of all sorts of expectations. That's where I think the book doesn't strike us as this kind of thing that is somehow alien. Like, that's what this appeal is that it's entirely strikes home as this kind of moment of a betrayal, of how we didn't really, that's not what government and society is supposed to be for us, but his.
Are we getting photos?
I know. Are we getting
and also as well.
So that's just recorded, but this is all photographic. I feel very oppressed by this. I must say.
He's getting his freedom taken away.
Yeah, that's right. Right now.
I don't know if you have already finished your 8 minutes, but you can always connect it to my own. I have 73.
Well, actually, I think that just to make sure that I got this, because it's recording until now, I'll probably do my sign off here and then just shut this down and publish this as the episode, because we usually stay under 30 minutes on this podcast anyway. So we've been discussing The Handmaid's Tale today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a little bit different, a little step away from what I usually do, and I thank you for listening. And join me next time. Y'all come back now. You hear?